Today we'll be talking about the most common form in jazz music, the 12-bar blues. When people refer to a blues, while they all share some similarities that we'll get into, there are many variations in the harmonies and melodies that we should acquaint ourselves with as we develop our knowledge of jazz language. I've included here 6 different blues forms of increasing complexity with original melodies. If you're interested in any of the materials in this video, PDFs are for sale on my website, link in the description. We'll start with what I consider to be the most basic blues form. This is one that most non-jazz musicians think of whenever they refer to a blues, especially people coming from more rock, pop, or blues styles. There are only 3 unique chords in this form. There is the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord, all dominant 7ths. As we go through the form, we start with 4 measures of the 1, followed by 2 of the 4, another 2 of the 1, then we do the 5, 4, and finally 1 again. Then we could put another 5 chord here, which helps us to go back to the top of the form. For me, the defining blues element of this form, or any blues, as we'll see, happens in the 5th measure of the form on the 4 dominant chord. What you'll notice is that the flat 7 of the 4 chord is also the minor 3rd of our key. So that note helps to give us the mixed major and minor sound that we consider kind of a hallmark of any blues. This is an example of a basic blues melody and improvisation. So our first variation on the blues form is what we'll be calling the Bebop Blues. Anytime someone calls a Bebop Blues melody, like Billy's Bounce, Tenor Madness, or Straight No Chaser, they are using this chord progression or at least something fairly similar. First, let's talk about what's the same as our basic blues. We start with a 1 dominant chord, and in the 5th measure, we go to a 4 dominant chord. We discussed previously how this is an integral element of making a blues sound like a blues, is that 4 dominant chord in the 5th measure. Then we return to the 1 chord in the 7th measure. While it's not precisely the same place, the 5 chord now happens in the 10th measure as a part of a 2-5 instead of in the 9th measure. In terms of changes, many chords have been added to this form. Many with important functional harmonic motions. To start with, in the 4th measure, we now have a 2-5 to the 4 chord to kind of help cement that motion. This is not the only added 2-5, with the 2-5 of the 2 happening in the 8th measure, and finally a 2-5-1 in the 9th through 11th measures. Even in a bebop blues, there are certain optional passing chords that could happen, mostly in the form of sharp 4 diminished chords in the 2nd and sixth measure, which kind of give us a little bit of a gospel-y motion towards our one chord. Here you can see we've maintained a fair amount of the original blues form's important moments, but have added on chords to have more harmonic variety and gravity. Before we move on to the next blues form, I just wanted to mention that if you're interested in any of the materials from today's lesson, they are all available for purchase on my website. The link is in the description below. I've also, I wrote all of these melodies trying to emulate different blues melodic styles, focusing heavily on the rhythmic displacement employed in many of Charlie Parker's blues heads. Also, if you're interested in studying with me privately, there is now a lesson inquiry form on my website that you can fill out if you are interested in studying harmony, improvisation, or trumpet. Also, all of the backing tracks that I'm using in today's video are at the end of today's video if you want to use those for practice purposes. Thank you very much. This next blues variation is the chord progression from the Charlie Parker blues form Blues for Alice. You'll notice that these are a further departure from our original blues form. You'll notice the use of a major seventh chord instead of a dominant seventh chord for our one chord. And then you'll notice an even greater use of 2/5 chord progressions. You might even have a hard time believing that this is a blues for the first four measures, with the minor 2/5s going to the 6, and finally then we have that same 2/5 to the 4 dominant chord in the 5th measure, which is, again, what kind of cements this as a blues form. But that is immediately followed by a string of chromatically descending 2/5s. Finally, we return to some normalcy with our 2/5-1 and the ending. For many experienced level improvisers playing on blueses, they might mix and match these different pieces of blues chord progressions. While we've been talking about all of these different blues form variations as being unique, really any of these harmonic motions are kind of customizable, and you can pick and choose which ones you want to use in different situations. This is one example of kind of a mix and match version of a blues. This next blues form is what I'm calling a modern jazz blues, where we're employing elements of more modern jazz blues forms like Joe Henderson's Isotope. In this form, we're employing a lot of what we call constant structure harmony. If you aren't familiar with constant structure harmony, the idea is that we're taking a single chord shape and moving that around, shifting it in its entirety in order to keep the underlying intervallic relationships consistent. This method is kind of opposed to traditional harmonic standards of voice leading, but it creates interesting harmonic, melodic, and modal relationships. In this form, we've started with a constant structure device where we descend in whole steps, starting from our root, descending down until we get to B7, which is the sub 5 of our 4 chord, leading us to our 4 chord in the 5th measure as usual. There's also a similar usage of constant structure dominant chords at the end of the song, where we have, but this time moving in minor thirds. We also have some of our chromatically moving 2/5s, but they've kind of been displaced from where they were in the Blues for Alice form. This last blues form is not so much standard practice, but something I hope will inspire you with different ideas of how we can manipulate a blues and even further harmony in general. This one employs different variations of John Coltrane's 3-tonic system. As a brief explanation, Coltrane's system rapidly shifts between keys a major third apart. And he used this system famously in songs like Giant Steps, 26-2, and Satellite. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you find yourself with a little bit of a better understanding of what makes a blues and all of the different variations we can have on this one form. If you're interested in any of the materials from today's video, they are all for sale on my website, link in the description below. There you can also find a form to fill out if you're interested in private lessons. Also, the remainder of this video is the simple backing tracks that I've been using throughout. So if you're trying to practice these forms, then feel free to use these backing tracks at the rest of the video. Thanks again, and happy practicing. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. One, two, 1, 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 2, 3, 4.